Contract killers for hire. A ruthless stalker so terrifying it feels straight out of a Netflix thriller. Disturbing torture videos that defy belief. And even a planned massacre. This is 50 insane facts about the dark web. Number 50. Murders for hire. There really are, or at least there were, sites that purported to let you book an assassin, like an Uber, but for contract killings. One of them was called Azerbaijani Eagles, which claimed to offer a no-nonsense, simple assassination for just $5,000, the going rate on most hitman sites. But if just killing someone isn't enough, then there was also the Slayer's Hitman, which said if you paid $50,000, you could have someone tortured as well before they were killed. Yeah, that's as horrifying as it sounds. But the real question is, do they offer competitive prices? Number 49. A researcher at the University of Michigan in 2020 said the average rate for a contract murder in the US was about 20 grand. Research from the UK said the rate for a hitman there was 18,000 and Australia 11,000. So not only does the dark web offer anonymity for anyone looking to hire a killer, but it also delivers killer deals. Australia's pricing practically screams murder on a budget. Later, we'll prove that real hitmen do exist on the dark web. Now let's look at some hard facts. Number 48. How big is the dark web really? It's hard to say, but experts believe that the dark web makes up to 5% of the entire internet. The internet most of you use every day, the open web, where you scroll through memes, shop online, or binge your favorite YouTube channel, only accounts for 4 to 10% of the web. The deep web is next. This includes all the stuff you can't search for, like your emails, bank accounts, private databases, basically anything locked behind a password. That makes up 90% of the internet. But then there's the information hidden behind layers of encryption, the places where anonymity is king. This is the dark web. And as you'll see throughout this entire video, there's a very good reason these people spend much of their lives dressed in digital disguise. Number 47. Surprisingly, only about 57% of the websites on the dark web host illicit stuff. That might seem low, but let's put that into perspective. More than half of this hidden network is a smorgasbord of illegal activity. From people selling passports to drugs, it caters to all needs. Number 46. So what's flying off the virtual shelves? The 5 biggest selling kinds of items in order are drugs, stolen financial data, counterfeit documents, hacking tools, and people's identity data. But that's just the start. Stick around because later we'll uncover even more twisted bestsellers lurking in those digital back alleys. Number 45. A recent study put the number of websites on the dark web at about 55,000, but only 8,400 of them are live. Despite this, the dark web sees a staggering 2.5 million visitors every single day. Okay, so how do you pay for stuff on the dark web if you want to keep your anonymity? Number 44. In 2023, Bitcoin was the virtual currency of choice on the dark web, making up 98% of transactions. Interestingly, the dark web played a huge role in the rise of Bitcoin, helping it grow into what it's become today. Still, right now, Bitcoin transactions on the dark web make up a minuscule number of all global Bitcoin transactions, less than 0.08% in 2018. To really grasp just how much Bitcoin has flowed through the dark web, let's take a trip down the Silk Road, the most infamous online black market of them all. The owner was arrested in 2013, and Silk Road was closed down, but prior to that, he made a lot of money. The FBI initially seized 26,000 Bitcoins from his account, then worth about $3.6 million. In total, over 9,500,000 Bitcoins were spent on the Silk Road products, and as the middleman, the owner took a cut of about 615,000 Bitcoins. At the current Bitcoin rate, that is over $61 billion. Number 43. In 2021, dark web markets and fraud shops saw a total revenue of $3.1 billion. In 2022, it was just $1.5 billion. One of the reasons for the massive decrease was the bust of the Hydra market, a Russian-run marketplace launched in 2015. Now, the people who ran it are serving very long prison sentences. In 2024, the so-called kingpin was given a life sentence in Russia. The next one on the list is a real bugbear for governments. Number 42. Every 39 seconds, someone lurking on the dark web decides to launch a cyber attack. Many of these are ransomware attacks, a cyber criminal favorite. In fact, 2021 data revealed that a ransomware attack happens somewhere in the world every 11 seconds, whether through the dark web or the open web. This is hardly surprising when you consider that the dark web is awash with hackers selling ransomware as a service, or RAS. They sell code so the buyer can infect a business's computer systems and effectively hold it ransom until that business pays them a lot of money. Number 41. Cyberattacks cost firms $20 billion in 2021, with the cost of the average attack being around $5 million, which doesn't include payouts. A 2020 attack on the IT services supplier Cognizant cost the company $50 to $70 million. By 2031, it's expected the global annual cost of these attacks will be $265 billion. Number 40. During the 2020 COVID pandemic, dark web sellers were offering fake vaccination certificates for anywhere between $200 and $750. And they didn't stop there. You could buy both physical and digital certificates for countries worldwide. Need a little extra? Sellers also had fake PCR test results ready to complete the illusion. When there's demand, the dark web always delivers. Now let's look at the USA's enemy number 1. Number 39. Fentanyl has been a huge problem in the USA, and one of the reasons for that is the dark web. In a 2019 study, 15 to 22 kilograms of fentanyl, including the more stronger carfentanil, was available for sale on the dark web. On one marketplace alone, there were over 5,500 transactions for fentanyl valued at over $2.8 million. In 2021, 8 American men were in court for importing fentanyl and Xanax from China and using those two substances to make fake oxycodone pills that they sold on the dark web. They made about 500,000 fake pills in total, and 90 of their customers overdosed and died. The victims were probably mostly men. 7 out of 10 U.S. opioid deaths in the U.S. are male, as are 84.7% of dark web users. Number 38. In 2023, Operation Spectre resulted in the capture of $53 million in virtual currencies, as well as 850 kilograms of various kinds of drugs, plus 117 firearms. It was a massive police operation between 9 European countries that led to the arrest of 288 people involved with the monopoly market. But the customer base for dark web drugs keeps going. When 100,000 drug users in 50 countries worldwide were asked if they'd bought a drug on the dark web in the last year, only 4.7% answered in the positive in 2014, and that went up to 10.8% in 2022. But it's not all about the darkness on the dark web. Number 37. In a survey, 50% of American internet users said they didn't use the Tor browser because they didn't know how to use it. Another 45% said they didn't use it because they felt they had no reason to. In general, about 70% of people in the world don't really know much about life on the dark web or how to use it. But more and more people are turning to the dark web for secure emailing and file sharing. 2019 research shows India leads the way here, with 26% of its internet users engaging with these kinds of technologies, and then comes Russians at 22%. We say the dark is safe and secure, but later in this video you'll see how some dark web users have started to question how safe their anonymity actually is. Number 36. Now, you might be under the impression that everyone on the dark web is there to do something illegal, but surveys have shown that only 6.7% use the dark web for illicit reasons. When Edward Snowden leaked highly sensitive documents revealing how the NSA was spying on Americans, he used the dark web to release the files and communicate securely with journalists. Number 35. Blacksprut is currently the leading marketplace on the dark web with a 28% market share. In 2023, it had 1,100 vendors, most of them selling drugs, but also many of the other illicit items we're discussing today. These people behind the site are so confident they won't get caught that in 2023, you could find Blacksprut electronic cyberpunk billboards in Moscow. Now, it's unclear whether they hacked the billboard or if the ad space owners were simply clueless about what Blacksprut really does. But one thing is for sure, the people behind Blacksprut have become very confident about their evasion abilities. Number 34. Believe it or not, dark web vendors are quite professional. Research shows that 92% of cybercriminal marketplaces have options where you can dispute and resolve issues with the seller. Most of the sellers let you leave reviews, and about 77% of them have bought a $3,000 vendor license. Number 33. Most vendors on the dark web have a positive feedback score of over 65%. It's not great, but it probably is better than the service coming from your local street corner hoodlum. Number 32. You can browse whatever you want on the dark web without getting into trouble if you're not buying or sharing things illegally. In fact, 62.28% of people in a survey in 2018 said they used the dark web for added security, not for anything illegal, and 27% said they were just curious. Number 31. Dark web users are generally quite smart about concealing their identity. A survey showed 58.8% of users have a postgraduate degree. Just 5.9% of users in that survey said they didn't have a degree. Number 30. Even the dark web isn't immune to being hacked or taken over. In 2019, users spotted a warning next to Dream Market's site, which at the time had a staggering 57,000 drug listings and 4,000 for opioids. The warning was simple but ominous. Assume this site has been compromised. And they had good reason to worry. Just 2 years earlier, Dutch police pulled off a brilliant sting operation by secretly taking over the Hansa Market, another major dark web marketplace. For an entire month, buyers and sellers unknowingly conducted their illegal trades directly with the police, not the site admins. Number 29. Between January 2020 and June 2022, there were around 200,000 employment-related advertisements across 155 dark web forums. This was a record, likely because of the pandemic. Most of the jobs were IT-related, people looking for hackers and users who could build and spread malware. The top-paying developer jobs found by researchers at SecureList.com each paid about $20,000 a month, although the average IT job paid between $1,300 and $4,000 a month. 45% of the jobs were remote, 34% full-time, 33% with a flexible schedule, and just 8% with sick pay, and 7% of the said jobs came with career prospects. Number 28. On the dark web, there's a job for everyone, if you're willing to take the risk. Drug markets are constantly opening and closing, making it hard to track just how many there are operating at any given time. A 2023 report confirmed this uncertainty, but one thing is clear, these marketplaces need staff. Between 2020 and 2022, 17% of job ads on the dark web weren't offering jobs, they were from people looking for work. And the pay is surprisingly lucrative. After one of the main marketplaces was taken down and US vendors were arrested, it was revealed that the people were paid $200 or $300 per package that they received and moved somewhere else. Some were even hired as package specialists and paid $7,000 a month. A customer support rep was getting $1,600 a month. We don't know what happened to them, but the public relations guy was arrested and sentenced to 3 years and 10 months in prison. Number 27. It seems the British are big fans of online encrypted drug purchasing. In a 2018 study, Britain was only behind Finland and Norway in the list of biggest buyers of drugs online. Research shows that out of 65,000 darknet drug buyers, the average age was 21 years old. They were mostly male and less likely to be in paid employment. 67% said they'd tried a new drug from the dark web, showing people are likely to experiment when buying drugs online. Number 26. One of the biggest busts related to the dark web was when the owner of the Alphabet marketplace was taken down in 2017. At the time, he had 200,000 users, surely making him the world's biggest drug dealer. He was a Canadian man who was living in Thailand, selling everything from drugs to false IDs to people's personal information. He bought several properties, including a hotel, and drove around in sports cars. According to the Department of Justice, his site was facilitating around $600,000 to $800,000 of transactions per day. And of course, he took his cut. What's the most surprising thing you learned about the dark web so far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Number 25. For as little as $1, you can buy login details, IP addresses, and other digital footprints on the dark web. In 2023, the BBC reported on Genesis Market, a site run by an infamous owner who was offering access to a database containing over 80 million sets of credentials and digital fingerprints. The data provided allowed fraudsters to access bank accounts, shopping platforms, and more. Number 24. We've already given you the top 5 things available on the dark web, so here are 6 to 10 counterfeit currencies, weapons, illicit services, including hitman services and identity theft services, hacking tutorials, and guides, sites offering stolen corporate or government data. Number 23. Looking for a hitman on the dark web? Well, prepare to be disappointed. Between 2018 and 2019, researchers at Michigan State University studied 24 hitman-for-hire sites, and they found a surprising truth: most were total scams. The so-called assassins were just stock photos, and the glowing reviews were from customers who never existed. According to Thomas J. Holt, director at Michigan State's School of Criminal Justice, these sites are likely run by dark web hackers as a side hustle to their main hacking gigs. And while most of these operations originate in Eastern Europe, their target audience is Westerners who speak English, and they might just be desperate or gullible enough to fall for it. The moral: if you're browsing for a hitman, you'll probably get hit with a scam. Number 22. The dark web is a stalker playground. In 2023, Kaspersky said it found stalkerware on over 31,000 unique mobile devices around the world, up from 29,000 in 2022. The countries with the highest incidence were Russia, Brazil, and India. Also, one of the services dark web hackers offer is coordinated stalking, meaning that you can hire them to surveil someone and feed you back information. In 2020, 15 billion username and password credentials were for sale on the dark web. These stalker services could very likely get you what you wanted. Some dark stalkers take things a step further. In 2023, a female stalker in England paid dark web hitmen almost $20,000 to kill a guy that she met at work and had a brief fling with. It seems he didn't quite take to her, which is hardly surprising given that once she'd been rejected, she paid to have him murdered. In a story that plays out like a Netflix thriller, it started with two co-workers who barely knew each other until she became obsessed. For 2 years, she bombarded him with constant emails and messages. When he left the company to escape her, she somehow followed him to his new job. When he ignored more of her messages, she told their employer he was guilty of harassment, homophobia, and racial abuse. When she finally gave up pursuing him, she hired hitmen on the dark web, saying, "I need someone killed in Norfolk, and it is vital it looks like an accident." The target now fights a daily battle with crippling anxiety, and who can blame him, especially since she'll be out of prison in 5 years or less. Later, we'll give you an example of when the dark web hitman was real and someone was actually murdered. Number 21. In 2020, 22 billion new records of people were added to the dark web. Around 134,000 were C-level Fortune 1000 executives. Number 20. 60% of the data found on the dark web poses a direct threat to businesses and enterprises. This data includes everything from stolen login credentials and financial records to intellectual property and confidential corporate communications. Hackers and cybercriminals can purchase this information for a few dollars. Number 19. In 2023, 550,000 Americans logged onto the dark web every day. Number 18. But Americans only make up about 21% of daily users of the dark web. The highest number of users is in Germany, who makes up 47% of dark web users. Even the British and their love for dark web drugs only make up 1.4% of dark web users. France, India, Finland, Russia, and the Netherlands have similar rates. In 2017, 10,000 dark web websites were hacked and taken down. This has worried a lot of people, including Germans. In 2024, Tor had to put out a press release telling its German users that their privacy was still safe. That was because German law enforcement had infiltrated so many dark websites, with German media saying Tor had been breached. Number 17. There are forums where cannibals and those aspiring to be swap tips on the best cuts of human meat and debate the finer points of cooking it. It proves once again that no corner of the internet is safe from utter insanity. In a study from January to May 2020, researchers watched the growth of dark web forums and said the user bases grew 44%. Unsurprisingly, a lot of the forums are for people discussing cybercrime tips. Head on over to the forum named Crack King and you'll find over 225,000 threads, 2 million messages, and around 485,000 members. Nulled is even bigger with 5 million members and 33 million posts. Dark web forums also include people talking about extremism, with researchers calling the dark web a haven for jihadists. They share propaganda, recruitment materials, and even talk about illegal operations. Many people visit these forums simply for privacy reasons, such as people wanting to discuss their alcoholism knowing their secret will never come out. There's also Dread, a dark web version of Reddit, which hosts threads about anything you can think of. It's a lot smaller than Reddit, but still sees hundreds of posts per day. Number 15. In a survey, just under 12% of dark web users were aged 18 to 25. Around 23% were 36 to 45, and almost 6% were 46 to 55. Number 14. Surely, if there are so many bad people on the dark web, you have to be careful what you click on. 29% of dark web users have accidentally downloaded malware. A Reddit user said he took an interest in the dark web, and while he was looking at a website, his webcam turned on by itself. He wrote, "Here I am, trying to look at a website which is probably operated by some criminal organization, and for all I know, they have my face stored away somewhere. Can someone actually take over your webcam? Well, yes, if they can get malware on your computer from you visiting their website and clicking on the wrong link. And as you know, malware is easy and cheap to buy on the dark web." Number 13. Someone hacked dark web sites. A few years ago, a British man wanted to see if hitmen sites were real or fake, so he hacked them. He found 283 messages from people asking to have someone whacked. He also saw internal messages that showed the site operators had no intention of going through with what they promised. One of those messages was written by an administrator saying, "I am not a murderer and I don't want anyone to be murdered." So it is a fact that 99% of those sites are not real, but not all. Now something to worry all you Americans out there. Number 12. According to a study, 45% of the hacked medical data circulating on the dark web belongs to U.S. patients. Millions of Americans have had their most sensitive health information exposed after massive breaches at healthcare providers like Banner Health and Newkirk Products. But it's not just Americans. In 2024, the BBC reported a case where ransomware hackers published the mental health data of children on the dark web after they didn't receive a ransom. And the attacks keep coming. Hackers recently stole 400 gigabytes of data from a London pathology lab, exposing blood test results, names, and other private records. Let's now talk about guns. Number 11. In 2019, over 2,100 guns were available to buy on the dark web, with the Glock handgun being the most popular, making up 57% of purchases. In a 2021 study of some of the leading markets on the dark web, researchers found just under 1,500 handguns, over 200 rifles, 41 submachine guns, and 34 shotguns. These sites were also selling explosives, tasers, pepper spray, knives, and knuckle dusters. Even more shocking is that some of the sites were selling chemical, biological, nuclear, and radiological weapons. The average cost of a dark web handgun was around $740. If you're in the market for something bigger, a long gun goes for just under $1,100. Assault rifles were a little more expensive, averaging $2,500 to $3,500. A Kalashnikov will set you back $2,800 to $3,600. While weapons do appear on dark web marketplaces, they're a small fraction of the trade. They account for just 1 to 2% of the listings and generate sales of around $80,000 a month, a drop in the ocean compared to drugs and cybercrime-related sales. To put it into perspective, the illegal arms market globally is valued at over $1 billion a year, but that is still dwarfed by the $4 billion generated by the legal weapons trade. So while the dark web might have its share of illegal arms dealers, it is still a small-time player in the larger world of arms trafficking. Number 10. 60% of the guns available on the dark web come from the United States or Eastern Europe, where it's easier to access firearms. Buyers tend to come from countries where getting hold of a gun is more difficult, such as the UK, Australia, and parts of Asia. If you're wondering how you send a gun through the mail, the answer is they often come in parts, what are referred to as ghost guns. In 2018, a 19-year-old British kid ordered a Glock 17 handgun and 5 rounds of ammunition on the dark web, but U.S. Homeland Security officers intercepted the package at the Newark airport. When British police went through his room, they found a USB stick with 1,000 pages of notes relating to explosives and massacres. The worrying thing is that he found tutorials on bomb making on the dark web. Simple bomb-making instructions might cost just $5 to $50, but people are selling more in-depth, step-by-step tutorials for $100 to $500. Kits with materials as well as instructions have been known to sell for $2,000 to $5,000. These days, you can also spend as little as $12 on the dark web for 3D printing gun designs. Researchers in Australia said 3D printed components and kits are for sale online, and these days the materials are much stronger and more reliable. Number 9. You might think the only language of the dark web is English, but that is not the case. 73% of domains are in English, with 11% in Russian, 2.33% in German, 2.15% in French, and 2.14% in Spanish. Number 8. For $200 to $400, you can buy a high-quality fake degree from just about any university in the world on the dark web. That might sound pricey, but when you consider the alternative, an average American student debt of over $37,000 after college, it starts to look like a bargain. Of course, one comes with 4 years of hard work, and the other, well, just a click and a payment. Just remember, this is fraud and it can get you in serious trouble. Number 7. A dark web user was selling information on how to hack university record systems for just $15. Tutorials, whether hacking or making drugs or bombs, are a huge market on the dark web. Number 6. Looking to start a new life? There are fake driver's licenses sold on the dark web for as little as $200. But if you want a passport that will actually work, you'll have to spend a good bit of cash. Researchers online who checked out numerous dark websites said if you want a counterfeit passport, you're looking at paying $710 for the US and similar prices for other Western nations. European passports are available for $4,000 and bulletproof US passports plus social security cards and driver's license for $5,900. And if you want to live in a new country with a visa, that's also on offer. Sellers offer to provide stamps for your chosen country for about $2,300. Needless to say, using a fake passport can lead to prison. Number 5. Sites on the dark web were offering PayPal accounts for around $197. Bank accounts were going for $70, and a physical cloned credit card was an average of $171. A site was even selling a perfect credit rating for $2,000. Again, let us just remind you, all of this stuff could get you in very serious trouble. Number 4. What if you wanted to destroy someone's livelihood? Well, you could start by taking down their website. The dark web offers denial of service attacks, which means sending thousands of requests per minute, which will crash a website. Sites on the dark web in 2022 were selling 10 to 50,000 requests per minute for unprotected websites for just $10. That was an hour. If you wanted it to last a day, that was $45. And if you really wanted to mess with them, you could pay $800 for a month. But this really only works if the site doesn't have good security. Okay, the next 3 are the darkest of dark places on the dark web. Number 3. In 2023, researchers in Australia revealed that for over 5 years they analyzed more than 2 million ads on the dark web and uncovered 3,500 listings for the sale of wild animals. Not only are many of these animals endangered, but they could carry disease, which is why they are traded in the shadows. Number 2. Red rooms are among the most talked about horrors of the dark web, advertised as places where users can buy a front row seat to witness unspeakable depravity. But the truth is, they're almost certainly scams. People who use the dark web and know where to look may have seen ads for upcoming red rooms. A user on Reddit said he saw one himself, and it had a countdown clock with the site saying something like, "Just 17 hours left, get your ticket now." In some cases, the buyers were asked if they wanted to be a spectator, commander, or a master. But what they actually paid for was a great big scam. Goes without saying, these red room offers could be an FBI honeypot. The fact is, the dark web is too slow to accommodate live streaming, and you could be sure, even if it could, the FBI would be all over it. Number 1. Dark web hitmen are real. We said we'd give you an example of someone hiring a hitman on the dark web. Well, we have 2. The first happened in Russia in 2018, when a high-ranking police investigator, Yevgenia Shishkina, was gunned down near her home in Moscow. The BBC investigated this and called it the world's first documented case of a contract killing ordered via the so-called darknet. 2 teenagers were paid around $15,000 by a man who ran a drug-dealing site on the dark web. One of the teens, just 17 years old, had actually looked for a job on the dark web. He was hired for murder, splitting the money with his friend. But this wasn't a professional hit. He was an amateur having to watch YouTube videos to see how to load the gun. On the day, he walked up to Miss Shishkina and shot her twice, leaving her to die in her husband's arms. And in 2021, 2 young men were imprisoned in Finland for the contract killing of the father of one of the men. The killer was hired through the dark web. He had posted an ad offering his services as a hitman, proof that while many hitman for hire sites are scams, real killers do lurk in the shadows. What's the craziest dark web fact that you've heard? Share it in the comments. Now you need to watch This Is How the FBI Will Catch You on the Dark Web, or have a look at What Does Fentanyl Do